Good morning, dear students. In this video, I will explain this particular poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, by William Wordsworth in detail, each stanza at a time. So if you are following this video, kindly have your books open at page 108. Now, before I go on to explain, have a look at this little information which is mentioned on page 109 regarding the author, regarding the poet. William Wordsworth, his dates are 1770 to 1850. He was born in 1770 in Cockermouth, a place in the Lake District of England, and he was surrounded by nature. The majestic beauty of the district gave rise to his deep love of nature, which was reflected in his poetry. So he was surrounded with lakes, the open, expansive meadows and fields, the trees, birds, and he was deeply influenced by the natural environment. And that is what influenced him, impressed upon him to express his feelings, always treating himself to be a part and one with nature. In 1843, he had become or became England's poet laureate, the chief poet in the Queen's court, and that was a highly respectable position to occupy. Well-known poems by him, by this particular poet, William Wordsworth, include Tintern Abbey and The Solitary Reaper. If you get a chance, do read both, and you will see the themes of death, the themes of solitude in these poems. Tintern Abbey and Solitary Reaper, the Lucy poems. I will not go into the details of them. Now let us focus on this particular poem, The Daffodils, or here the name is written as I wandered lonely as a cloud. Now the spelling of the word wandered, W-A-N-D-E-R-E-D. Wandered means to move from one place to another. An aimless movement, a purposeless movement. So here, gentlemen, one question is asked at the beginning of the page. What is an image or memory that you can always count on to lift your spirits when you are feeling low? What is that one key image or memory that you can recall to help yourself overcome this feeling of depression? Ask yourself that question. Is there anything that you can recall from the past, especially from nature, that can help you to overcome depression and the feeling of sadness and the feeling of being in despair, the feeling of hopelessness? It can help you to overcome that. What is that one thing? Ask yourself. Here you will find in the poem, the poet uses the experience that he had of witnessing this host of daffodil flowers by the lake, moving gently in a synchronized manner, with the help of the gentle breeze blowing through them, touching them, caressing them, affectionately touching them. It appeared to the poet as if the flowers were dancing, and he has this recollection he has this image later on to flash in his mind, especially during the times when he would feel low and lonely. The memory of these flowers would flash upon his mind and help him to overcome the feeling of depression, the feeling of sadness, the feeling of loneliness, and restore his happiness. So, you think for yourselves, is there any memory that you have which you can recollect, bring it back to your memory, and by the help of which you can overcome your feeling of despair, loneliness, and sadness? On April 15th, 1820, Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy saw a large number of golden daffodils growing on the bank of a lake that they had gone out for a walk in the meadows, and they came across this beautiful sight, this huge expanse of daffodils growing along a lake. Inspired by this lovely and majestic sight of the daffodils, Wordsworth composed this poem. And he believes that nature has this capacity of restoration. It can restore in us our lost happinesses. It can restore in us this feeling of great joy, this feeling of hope, this feeling of inspiration when we are down, when we are low in our spirits, when we feel despair, when we feel lonely. We can draw from nature inspiration to help us overcome these negative feelings. So now let us have a look at this poem in detail. I wandered, lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So, in the first stanza, the poet uses the word I to begin the poem. I wondered means he says that he was moving about like a lonely cloud. So he is comparing himself with with a lonely cloud, and he is saying in this particular line, he says he's talking about himself. He mentions that he was wandering about, moving about aimlessly without any purpose, and he was feeling as lonely as a cloud. And this cloud, he says, that floats on high up in the sky, that moves high above in the sky, over vales and hills, over valleys and hills. He said that he was feeling the same as a lonely cloud, that floats all by itself, up above in the sky, over valleys and hills. He said he was feeling the same kind of feeling he experienced when all at once I saw a crowd. And as he was wandering about like a lonely cloud, a cloud that was all on its own, floating high above in the sky over the valleys and hills, he said at that point of time he had witnessed all of a sudden, he had seen this majestic, this beautiful sight, and it had accidentally happened to him. All at once, all of a sudden, abruptly, he had come to this beautiful sight of what he had seen. A crowd. He uses the word a crowd. A crowd is a term that we can only use for human beings. But here he uses the word a crowd to describe these flowers, which were many in number, growing by the lake, on the banks of this lake where he had gone for a walk. When all at once, he said, while he was on his long walk, feeling like a lonely cloud, he had come across this majestic, this beautiful sight of a huge expanse of daffodils. And this huge expanse of daffodils, he addresses them as a crowd of daffodils. So personification is used. He calls the flowers a crowd of daffodils, a host of golden daffodils. And then he says, a host of golden daffodils. A host here, we use this term, a host. Host is usually used for a person, for a human being who arranges a particular program or a particular feast, welcoming others to entertain them, with a purpose to entertain others. So here he says, these flowers were like a host, welcoming him, inviting him to be entertained by their beauty. So, a crowd I saw, he said, he had seen this huge expanse of daffodils, and then he went on to say a host of golden daffodils. A host, meaning to say he is calling these flowers as a host, combined together as a host, as if they were welcoming him to this aesthetic feast, to entertain him, to fill him with joy and happiness. So he's calling these flowers a host. Of what? Of golden daffodils. Why golden? Golden means, he means to speak of the color of the flowers. They were bright yellow in color. So a host of golden daffodils waiting by the lake, inviting him, welcoming him to this visual feast, to entertain him, to fill him with joy, elation and happiness. Beside the lake. And where had he seen these flowers? He had seen those flowers beside the lake where he had gone for a walk, beneath the trees. And there were many trees interspersed, I-N-T-E-R-S-P-E-R-S-E-D, interspersed, I-N-T-E-R-S-P-E-R-S-E-D, interspersed. Beneath those trees, there were many trees interspersed, distributed unevenly among those flowers, and they were growing there. And in the shades of these trees, these flowers were fluttering, meaning, gentlemen, here there was a light, a gentle, trembling motion that these flowers were experiencing, and they were moving gently. So he calls this gentle movement of the flowers in the gentle breeze as a fluttering, moving gently to quiver and dancing in the breeze. And to him it seemed that these flowers were dancing all together, synchronized as a troop. And what a sight it was to him to be able to enjoy the beauty of these flowers. So, gentlemen, again, let us have a look at this stanza. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. They were moving about gently, swaying together in a synchronized manner, like a troupe of dancers, in the gentle breeze that was blowing, caressing, affectionately touching them through the stalk of these flowers. So, where were they? They were beside the lake. There were trees interspersed, spread among the flowers, unequally spread, and these flowers were growing in the shades of those trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. In the next video, gentlemen, I will continue with the second stanza. So, please follow and learn from them. Thank you.